All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Vasundhara Kaul. Good to see so many of you in the evening. It'll be nice to also have videos on wherever you are comfortable, as many of you as are comfortable, because typically in sessions that I conduct, I also have a lot of scope for interaction. So some could be non-verbal interaction where I can see your facial expressions when we do some activities. And of course, when you want to unmute and share or you want to put things down in chat, I'll be more than happy to hear from you in one mode or the other. So if those of you are comfortable with chat communication, those of you are comfortable with, saying, hi, Vasundhara, I want to share something, that's also good. And the others can do it as a combination, whatever works for you. So I'm just admitting that some more participants in. Just give me 30 more seconds, I think, and then we can begin. So I'm doing a session today on stress management and something which is very close to my heart because I'm a mental well-being practitioner. As part of our organization, we're talking about well-being and stress management all the time. I hope to kind of through this session bring across ideas in a very simplified way, which can be applied to your classrooms. But having said that, I will also go back to some bit of conceptual knowledge and also ensure that we understand why we are doing what we are doing, right? Because I can give you, say, 2000 stress management strategies, right? But I can bet my life on it that the 2001st strategy, Amarjeet sir or Lizelle ma'am or Aparna ma'am, Arvinder sir will all have to think of their own, right? Because every situation is different. So even if I gave you strategies after strategies after strategies on stress management, it's going to serve no purpose. So therefore, we kind of have to try and work it out in such a manner that we know the process. So once we know the process of stress management, we should be able to then apply that process to multiple situations in life, whether professionally or personally, right? With that, let me just share my presentation as well. And I have to warn everyone that I might have very minimal things on my presentation because typically I like, keeping the text minimal, but also the interaction to the maximum extent possible. So like I said, I'm going to be doing stress management, but I also believe that, the analogy, most of you would have traveled by plane at some point in time or the other. You've heard कि mask पहले अपने ऊपर लगाना चाहिए and then you help someone else. Is that a familiar thing that you've heard air hostesses announcing that in case of a difficulty, please apna mask lagaiye and then you help someone else, right? So stress management also works like that. Okay. Only when you can handle your own stress will people around you be in a better frame of mind, will the mental well-being of people around you be better, which means whether it is at home or it is at work as a teacher, first you have to manage your own stress. So today, first, for a large portion of the presentation today, I'm going to be talking about you as an individual. And then once you're able to manage your own stress or you understand how that works, you will be able to help the students out as well. But towards the end, I will also speak specifically about students as well. All right. So like I said, in my sessions, I will kind of ask you to interact. So you can choose what mode of interaction. You can unmute and answer. You can put it down on chat and share. But before that, let me just try and understand. On chat, can everyone tell me which city you are from? Like, let's see how many cities we are representing today. Like, so Angelina, Miss Lata, Siddhi, Naga, Arvinda sir, Maheshwari ma'am. Where are you from? Where are all of you from? Which cities are you from? So I have Bangalore. All right. Santosh sir, yes. Pune, okay. Hyderabad, lovely. Another Pune. Where else are we from? Oh, lots of Pune, Coimbatore. All right, nice. Okay, Chennai. Oh, the US. All right, Geeta, thank you for joining. Delhi, Qatar, amazing. All right. Delhi, Pune. All right. So lots and lots of cities, right? But irrespective of where we are currently, we've all just been through a pandemic. right? And therefore definitely experience stress at some point or the other, right? So we also have more of Karnataka, more of Maharashtra. Lovely. So keep that coming. Okay. And then also tell me, you can unmute and answer, you can put it down in chat. Ghaziabad coming as well. All right. What does your morning look like? Does your morning start with a jog? Does it start with yoga? Does it just start with you drawing the curtains aside, looking at the phone? Instagram में किसने मेरे picture को like किया? LinkedIn में मेरा कितने followers बढ़े? Online class preparation, breakfast and the phone together. And it does not need to be only these pictures, right? How many of you social media? Okay, Santosh sir is saying social media. It starts with social media. Anyone else who wants to tell me how their morning starts? What do you do as the first thing in the morning? You can tell me on chat. You can unmute and answer. What do you do as the first thing in the morning? Cup of tea is very important for Angelina. Siddhi is saying spiritual mantra. Lovely. Put on the TV. All right. That also works. Prayer is what works for Bindu. Lata, household chores. Absolutely. I'm with you on that, Lata. That's the first thing I land up doing as well. But of course, sometimes it's prayers and sometimes it's other things as well. So Deepa is also saying prayer. Okay. Any others? Any other mode of starting the day? Anyone else with any other? Just drink a glass of water or a couple of glasses of water. Warm water and prayers is what Jyoti is saying. All right. So that's the first thing that we kind of need to believe. Leena is saying meditation. That mental well-being and how we define mental well-being. Yogita, you were wanting to share something? You had unmuted. I can't hear you very well. Hello? Yes, Yogita.
Hello.
Yeah, you want to share?
Hello.
You want to share?
Oh.
Okay, no problem. All right. So no matter where you are, how you... Yeah, sorry? Okay, if you're not sharing, otherwise can you share what you were saying?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, go on. I can't make out. Are you talking to me or to someone else? Okay, let's just proceed. So when you're looking at self-care, or you're looking at mental well-being, or you're looking at how you start the day, all these are correct answers. If it's working for you, it's important to understand that it works, right? But yes, how much of it, what of it, etc., is something that you need to look at. And whether it is working for you in the long run, whether it's working for you in the short term, is what you kind of need to look at, right? So when you're looking at how your day is starting in the morning, the other thing I want you to do is give yourselves a pat on the back, like clap for yourselves, give yourself a pat on the back. And why am I asking you to do that? Why am I asking you to do that? Anyone for guessing why I'm asking you to give yourselves a pat on the back?
Doing multitask.
You multitask, absolutely, Lata ma'am. Why else am I asking you to give yourself a pat on the back?
Motivation for ourselves.
Motivation for ourselves, okay. Why else?
We appreciate ourselves because nobody else is going to appreciate us.
Absolutely, Amarjit sir. Couldn't agree more. That it has to start with us, right? And what do we need to appreciate ourselves for? We have to appreciate ourselves that we are able to multitask. We have to appreciate ourselves that we're doing a lot of stuff. We have to appreciate ourselves that we've survived a pandemic, right? So there is a lot that has happened in the pandemic. Our students have gone through a lot. Our children have gone through a lot. When you've gone into your classrooms, have you realized that 2 years have disappeared from children's lives? If you're looking at a 13-year-old, the child looks like a 9 or 10-year-old, or behaves rather like a 9 or 10-year-old. If you're looking at a 5 or 6-year-old, the child is behaving like a 2 to 3-year-old. You are seeing gaps in behavior, in development patterns, and all of that, right? So therefore, yes, most certainly, we are going to look at patting ourselves on the back as the first thing, because unless we do that, we are never going to be able to manage stress, manage who we are, what we are trying to do, etc. right? So the way I've structured the next 45 minutes is this. We're going to understand stress and Yogita, are you saying something? I'm not being able to make out. If you are, if you're not, then I'll request you to be on mute, please.
विचार ना रीड कर मानसी अर्ध्या तास लगेच संपन
So I'm going to talk about understanding stress and burnout. We're going to talk about self-care and compassion, a little bit of how we can work smarter, and also how we can make this happen for our students, right? So we're going to do a lot of things in a short period of time, and I hope to do justice to that. But there are a lot of little things that are important for us to look at when we're looking at stress. So therefore, how do we manage something? We can only manage something if we understand what it is, right? Therefore, if you have to manage stress, you have to understand what stress is and what is it doing for you, or what is it making you do, or how is your body reacting, etc. Just have a look at this picture. And in the chat, tell me, is the picture still for you, or do you see movement? Do you see very quick movement? Do you see very subtle movement? What are you seeing when you look at the picture? Is the picture moving for you or not moving for you? Look at it for 30 seconds and then tell me. Still, okay. For Lata ma'am, it's still. Anyone else? Look at that. Okay, for Maheshwari ma'am, it's moving. For Siddhi, it's moving. All right. So for some of you, it's going to be still. For some of you, it might be moving. For some of you, it might move very fast. For some, it might be very subtle. Like, it's not really moving us. So Mary ma'am is like saying slow movement, right? So Ricky is also saying slow movement. So when our mind is still and when there is relatively lesser stress, this picture is going to appear very still to us, right? But when there are thoughts in our mind, when there is either a moderate amount of stress or a large amount of stress, this picture is going to move, and the speed will determine how stressed we are. So if you're seeing it subtly moving or you're seeing it still, means you are very shant just now, you're all sorted just now. But yes, when we encounter stressful situations, and after the stressful situation, if you were to look at a picture like this, you will notice that it's going to move fast or move considerably. I have someone's hand up. Yes, Shisha? Was that by mistake?
Sorry, by mistake.
No problem. No problem. Okay, so when you're looking at this picture, it could mean different things for different people currently. In a different situation, that picture will show you a very different movement depending on how your body is in terms of that situation, right? Now, another important aspect to understand is the stress curve itself, okay? So any of you have seen the stress curve earlier? Have you seen the stress curve earlier? Have you seen something like this earlier? Anyone who's seen it has any familiarity with it? All right. So Lata ma'am is saying no. All right. So in case anyone has seen it, you can keep that background in mind as well. And I will explain how this works. You can ask me questions if you haven't understood everything that I say. And in case you have seen it earlier or have seen something similar earlier, then you compare what I'm explaining to what is there in your mind, right? So when you're looking at this curve, look at the two axes, okay? So you have one axis, which is the performance axis, which is the vertical axis, and the horizontal axis is the stress level axis. Now, little bit of maths here or little bit of understanding of graphs. If you're looking at the bottom corner, it'll obviously move from low performance and you go upwards, it'll be high performance. If you're looking at the leftmost side, it'll be low stress level, and on the rightmost side, it'll be high stress level, right? So if you're looking at the cornermost, which is the blue aspect, which is low stress level and low performance level, it just shows that at that stage, you are very, very laid back. You're like, okay, Sunday, I don't feel like doing anything. No work is going to happen. I don't want to do anything, or a holiday, like I just don't want to do anything, right? So when there is too little stress, you will not feel like doing any work. There will be absolute lack of motivation, and therefore you will not be in a position to do any work. There will be no performance that comes out, right? When you move from the blue part of the graph to the green part of the graph, which means stress level has increased a little bit, you will notice that at that optimum level of stress, your performance level also starts increasing, right? Which is the good stress. So when you're looking at the blue and the green, you are now reaching a stage where there's an optimum level of stress, and that stress is motivating you to perform, motivating you to do better lessons, motivating you to go to class every morning, motivating you to do all your corrections in time, your lesson planning in time, all of that, right? Because there's that basic level of stress. There's a little bit of deadline that is pushing you. There's a little bit of motivation to help students, which is pushing you. There's a little bit of, wanting to do well as a teacher, which is pushing you. So there could be multiple reasons for multiple people, but that optimum level of stress is going to help you perform at an optimum level. Okay, now if the stress keeps increasing, if it becomes more and more and more, if the work stress, professional stress, or the personal stress, or a combination of both becomes very, very high, where you are overworked all the time, you're constantly working 24/7, and yet you feel if I had 48 hours also, it would be less, a sense of exhaustion will start setting in, right? Which means the stress level starts becoming very, very high, and your performance level starts dipping. Okay, so when the stress level becomes so high that it starts impacting your productivity, or it starts impacting your performance level, which is where the first sign of you being worried should come in, saying, oh, I am not performing at the same level. Till the stress level, that motivation, that self-motivation is pushing you to perform and is not impacting productivity, you should feel happy with that level of stress. Because if that was not there, you would be doing nothing, or whoever would be doing nothing, right? So therefore, as soon as it becomes overpowering, which means you suddenly stop feeling like doing work, you are not performing at the same level, you are say forgetting a few things, you are not at your best, you get the feeling that you're not your best. People are giving you that feedback that, oh, you used to be writing so well, your writing was so beautiful, now what has happened? Or your work was so good, now something has happened, is something amiss? You start getting that feedback, is when exhaustion starts setting in. Okay, and when that exhaustion, which is that yellow portion, becomes so severe that you don't feel like doing any work, that is where the stress levels are so high that there's almost negligible productivity, or your ability to do work is down to almost zero. That is where the breakdown of the burnout starts happening, right? Now, ideally, how many of us would want to be in the red zone versus the green zone? How many of you would choose to be in the green zone and maybe a little bit of the yellow, but largely in the green? I can also change the question. Which zone do you want to be in? Do you want to be in the blue? Do you want to be in the green, the yellow, or the red? Where do you want your graph to be? The green, okay. Anyone else? Green, right? Now, the reality of life says that you will not be at green all the time. There would be times when you would be at blue. There would be times that you are at a yellow. But what should be avoided is the blue and the red. But yes, on holidays, on Sundays, etc. Yes, absolutely. Blue is fine. Okay. But can blue be 24/7? Can it be 7 days in the week? Can it be 365 days in the year? No. If that was the case, none of us would do any work. And any industry would collapse, including ours, which is the education space. Right? So what you're trying to do is remain in the green and the yellow, right? When you're in the green, you are at your best level of performance. The stress level is also relatively bearable. If you're in the yellow, the stress level increases a little bit. You're still performing well, but you have to be careful that your productivity doesn't start dropping. As soon as productivity starts dropping, or your students' productivity starts dropping, is where your antenna should go up and you should start figuring out whether you have any solutions. Is that good with everyone? Is the stress curve okay with everyone? Anyone who has any queries or questions for me? Can I move on? Yeah, I'm assuming that silence either means that you've understood everything or understood nothing. Yeah. So, all right. So if you have questions, you can come back in the end as well. But hopefully that's the basic concept of stress that you kind of need to understand. Okay. Now I've picked up two quotations. which are very close to my heart. And also you will recognize these people because they're educators and they're psychologists and they've written theories of learning and stuff like that, right? So read the first one and I'll then skip to the second one as well. So the first one is learning is the process whereby knowledge is created through a transformation of experience or experiences, right? Obviously, it's David Kolb talking about his experiential learning concept, where he's saying that at the end of the day, you learn if you are experiencing something, right? The second quote is by another favorite of mine, John Dewey. And interestingly, he's saying we do not learn from experience alone. We learn from reflecting on the experience, right? Now, if you bring these two quotes together, and I'm going to ask anyone to share with me, how did you learn how to cycle? Two-wheeler cycle, right? How did you learn how to cycle independently? What was the process that you went through? Anyone, any volunteer who wants to tell me that? Any childhood memories of falling, of getting up again, of cycling again? Anyone who wishes to share with me their cycling experience? Yes, Meera ma'am, tell me. Meera ma'am, you can share. Yes, please.
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Falling down multiple times and again getting up and trying.
Okay. Falling down multiple times, again getting up and trying. All right, Meera ma'am. Anyone else who learned how to cycle and what was their experience? Yes, Angelina?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I should always look for some height that I could put my feet on and then get myself stable. And then I
Okay.
should always look for some pole or something that I could
Okay.
catch hold of that pole and stop.
Lovely.
Slowly, yes, I learned.
So absolutely, right? You had an experience, you fell after that experience, you figured out, okay, how is it going to work for me? How will I eventually be able to cycle? So Angelina looked for poles, Angelina looked for some height where her foot would reach the pedal. Anyone else who had any other strategies while learning the cycle?
Yes, someone supporting me by holding the cycle behind and giving me confidence. Yes, you can do it.
All right, lovely. So someone who said, thumbs up, Maheshwari, well done, superb, let's go. You will be able to do it. Okay, lovely. Anyone else? Anyone
I took
else?
support of wall in my veranda. So I was
Okay.
one hand, with my left hand, I was holding the handle, and I was paddling with my both the feet, and with my right hand, I was holding onto the wall. So
All right.
that's how I remember.
Lovely. So Amarjit sir, Maheshwari ma'am, everyone, right? What you have kind of done is an entire learning process. Okay. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is that stress management can be learned. It's a skill which you can learn. It is not bookish. It is not that, okay, this is the only way it can be done. It is something that you can learn for yourself. What is going to work for you? So what is going to work for me in terms of stress management as Vasundhara? What is going to work for Lata? What is going to work for Leena, Amarjit sir, Ricky, Angelina? Every one of us have to figure out what's working for us, right? And what you've described just now as part of cycling is really how learning happens, how any learning happens. And now let's look at it in terms of the stress management context as well. But first, let's look at these 4 steps. Right? So what's happening in these 4 steps? Start at the top, that diamond ka green corner. Okay. So you are at an unconscious incompetence stage. What happens just before you start cycling? What happens just before you start learning something? You have no clue whether you will be able to do it well or you'll not be able to do it. Right? Once you get onto the cycle, fall a few times, you suddenly realize, oh my God, I'm very incompetent in this. At my conscious level, I am incompetent. I'm not feeling like, I can manage this. But there is a possibility that I may give up, right? So I may do step 1, I may do step 2, and I give up, which means I never learn cycling. So same thing goes for stress. If in the eventuality that I have never encountered stress, I will never learn how to deal with stressful situations. So therefore, I always tell people, don't pray that you never have stress. Pray that you have stress and you have the ability and learn the ability to overcome that stress. Because unless you encounter that first situation of stress, you will never know what works for you. right? So you can stay at that yellow, which is that conscious incompetence to say, oh my God, this is not happening for me. This is not working for me. I can never learn how to cycle. Or do what some of you did. Hold the wall, ask someone to help you, look at maybe, friends. Now, I have a 13-year-old at home, right? For him, if I ask him, how do you want to learn this skill? Should I get you a teacher? Should we ask someone, etc.? No, mama, YouTube. He wants to learn karate on YouTube. He wants to learn cycling on YouTube. Everything is YouTube, right? So I'm sure you've also encountered that with your students. But at the end of the day, whatever works and tells you how to do it, which is the conscious competence stage. The conscious competence stage is telling you, step 1, I must do this when I encounter a situation of stress. Step 2, I must do this. Step 3, I must do this. Step 10, I must do this, right? Which means at a very conscious level, I'm saying, okay, every time I am struggling, I have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I do this for the first 5, 6 times, and eventually it becomes a part of who I am. Eventually, I master the skill of being able to manage my stressful situations, or at least a particular kind of stressful situations, which is where I reach that purple square, which is unconscious competence, right? Now, you will be able to manage your stress if you are going through that cycle through various types of situations and reflecting. So you experience the stress. You figure out, okay, what's working for me? What worked for me in a previous situation? Will it work now? You figure that out. If it's not working, do I adapt? Can I be flexible? Do I learn something else? If that is also not happening, do I need someone's support? So there's too much stress in school. There's too much workload. Do I go to my coordinator and talk? Maybe my coordinator has a solution. Maybe my coordinator has not realized that I'm overworked. I just need to go and communicate. Or I ask for help. I ask for support. I figure out if I'm being inefficient. I do all of that at the conscious competence stage and then arrive at a situation where I'll be able to handle it properly, well on my own. Right? Now, Meera ma'am, I'm sorry, I saw your hand, but I wanted to complete the cycle. Do you have a question for me or you want to share something? And anyone else, are we good with the cycle? Do we understand the importance of going through that cycle? Any questions for me at this stage? I'll pause. I'll allow you to take the cycle in. Any questions for me? And Meera ma'am, if you want to unmute and share or answer whatever you were saying at that time, happy.
No, ma'am. It was, I think, the
From
previous.
earlier? Okay,
Yeah.
from earlier, no problem. Anyone else? Okay, so let's move on. If you want me to go back to the cycle at any stage, happy to do that in the end. But remember, you'll move from the unconscious incompetence, which means you are unaware of how you will deal with a particular situation, to become unconscious competence, which means it becomes the most natural part of you to be handling different situations. Now, the next time you encounter a very different stressful situation, you may have to go through that cycle all over again. But for every similar situation, you will know what to do. And which is the good part, right? So if you know how to handle 90% of your problems, you should be in a better position, right? Rather than having to fight all 100% of your concerns and all 100% of your situations, right? Now, if you remember the graph, and you remember that red portion, I used a word called burnout. And I said, it's ideally not a good scenario to be in that red portion of the graph, right? Which means it's not advisable to allow yourself to reach there, or allow a student to reach there, or allow a family member to reach there, or a colleague to reach there. If you are seeing red flags, if you are seeing people behavior changing, if you're seeing your students' behavior changing, and you're seeing certain signs, it's important to act while they are in that yellow zone, because there you can still ensure that by scaffolding, by giving support, by helping out the person, by getting them motivated and self-motivated, you'll manage the situation. When it reaches that red graph, it becomes that much more difficult to handle the situation, and it might then lead to other mental health concerns as well, right? So therefore, how do you identify whether anyone is going through a situation of burnout? Okay. Now, first I'll tell you the characteristics. And then before you ask me, saying, okay, ma'am, today I'm feeling like this. Am I in a burnout state? I will also tell you, how do you ensure that you're not overreacting? right? Because everyone may go through exhaustion and everyone may go through cynicism and everyone may feel ineffective on certain days. But is it happening more regularly for us is what we have to see, right? So burnout, this is a typical model of burnout to say that if it's a combination or an intersection of these three characteristics, typically your antennas, like I said, should go up. You should try and figure out if the person is struggling, your student is struggling, or you yourself are struggling with something, right? So the first one is exhaustion. The second one is cynicism. And the third one is inefficacy. Okay. So I'm going to go slowly and tell you what each of these three are. And again, you can feel free to ask me any questions if my first round of explanation is not easy enough, right? So exhaustion, like the English word says, is a sense of tiredness, right? But when you're looking at it in the context of burnout, you're looking at it saying, physically and emotionally, I feel so drained that I don't feel that I'm accomplishing anything at work or at a personal level, right? It doesn't have to be only at work. It doesn't have to be only at personal. It can be a combination of the two as well. But really, I'm feeling physically drained. I'm feeling emotionally drained. And I don't feel that I am performing as much as I was. So if I was able to cook food very quickly earlier and manage the house also very well and keep the house clean and invite guests over and do my school assignments and everything, today I'm finding that I'm struggling, right? So there's a sense of exhaustion. Now, I always tell people when I do this slide that in any other industry, right, where there is burnout, I would still say that there is replenishment and there's an alternative person available. So fine, someone who's going through burnout, we can see what's happening with the person, help out that person. But if an educator goes through burnout, it's a very risky situation to be in. And why? Because of cynicism. What does cynicism tell you? That you don't feel that you are wanting to be part of this work profile at all. And imagine if every educator thought that, what's going to happen to the future of the education system? What's going to happen to the present of the education system, right? That you, I, everyone in this room say that, you know, we are so burnt out that we don't want to be educators any longer. Now, education is one field where it's a lot to do with self-motivation for the field, right? So therefore, if cynicism sets in, you should be concerned as a school, you should be concerned as a principal, a head of school, admin, and as an individual in the classroom, everything, right? Inefficacy is if I don't feel that I'm performing at an efficient level, right? Exhaustion was I'm not performing. Inefficacy is I'm not performing at an efficient level. I can do this job much better. It is not producing the same effect, right? So when you have a combination of these, or you're observing a combination of these in a person, you will possibly find indicators of burnout. But like I said, today I'm feeling exhausted because for the last 2 days, it's been very hectic. I was, in a concert, I was on duty, and then there was corrections to do, and there was friends at home, and there was this, and there was that. I'm exhausted. There's been a lot happening at work, and I'm currently feeling, oh my God, why am I in this job, right? Why am I doing this, okay? So how do you ensure that you are not overstepping the line and you're not becoming you are not trying to call everyone, in a burnout state, is by another abbreviation, which is called FID, right? So I'm going to put it down on chat. And it's an abbreviation. So F means something, I means something, and D means something, right? And it is to do with observations. So observation in the classroom or observation about a person's behavior. So can anyone guess for me what F could mean and what I could mean and what D could mean? Anyone? You're talking in terms of behavior observation. Okay, so that's the hint. If you're talking in terms of behavior observation, what is F, what is I, what is D? So I'm trying to observe whether, say, Vasundhara is feeling burnt out or not. I'm making notes on F, making notes on I, making notes on D. So what am I trying to observe? Anyone who can give it a shot?
Fear, F for fear.
F for fear. All right, Lata ma'am. Okay. Anyone else? Or Lata ma'am, for I or D, if you have any thoughts? whatever are the words that come to you in your mind saying what could F be, what could I be, what could D be? There are almost 52 of us in the room, and I'm sure we are observing children all the time. What could
Identify
it
the
mean?
problem of the the
Okay,
child.
I could mean identify. All right. Okay. You are
And D
right
stand
that
for do
FID,
some do.
Amarjit sir, you're right that FID is used for identification of the problem, but F and I and D are the steps, right? So think of, I'll give you one more chance, everyone, in terms of you want to think of, and maybe I'll tell you what F is, and then maybe you'll be able to think of the I and the D. Okay, demotivated, all right. Anything else? So F is to do with frequency. Okay, how often do I see someone in this state, or how often do I see this behavior in a child? Frequency. What could I be, or what could D be? Intensity. I is intensity. How strong is this feeling? How severe is it? Like if I'm seeing a child behaving very badly, right? So I'm seeing him shouting, screaming, hitting people, or am I just seeing him like, making a face, crying once in a while or whatever? So is the intensity very high? Or if I'm looking at it in the academic terms, am I seeing spelling mistakes which are to the tune of 7 out of 10 mistakes? Absolutely, Vandana ma'am. Frequency, intensity, and duration. So you're looking at how often you are seeing that behavior, how often do you see someone stressed, with what intensity do you see that person stressed? A lot of physical observations. The person is sweating, the person is shaking, the person is, saying, oh, my stomach is rumbling, whatever. So there are lots of physical observations also, or a lot of agitation, etc. is seen. But you don't see it very often. You see it once in a while. Intensity is like all these symptoms you see together. Duration is, I'm only seeing this in the last 2 months. I'm seeing this in the last 2 weeks. I've been seeing this for the last 6 months, right? So if the duration is getting longer and longer of these observations, then definitely you do need to have your red flags up. And otherwise as well, you need to see how do you help yourself, or how do you help someone else, right? So what could be the possible causes of burnout? When do we feel that, we reach that stage of exhaustion or cynicism, etc.? Is where sometimes we don't have boundaries, where we kind of tell people that this is how much I can do, or this is what I can say yes to, this is what I can't say yes to, or maybe physical boundaries. And then, later I'm very agitated that someone came physically too close to me, or emotional boundaries, whatever, right? So sometimes we're not putting our boundaries out there. We are in a people-pleasing mode. I want to be the best daughter-in-law, the best son-in-law, the best son, the best daughter, the best sister-in-law under the face of the planet. You cannot be the best always. We are only human. We're going to make errors, right? We're going to make errors for sure. Okay, the day we stop making errors, the day we stop hurting people, the day we don't make any error under the sun, we should call ourselves God, but that's not going to happen. And therefore, we cannot be people pleasers all the time. I can't be the best teacher, the best mother, the best parent all the time. I can try and achieve that most of the time, but there are going to be days where I'm not going to be at my best, right? And therefore, I always tell this to parents as well. And I always tell this to teachers as well. We are human. And if we act as humans, students will accept us like that. Our children accept us like that. So say sorry, right? It's something that goes with being part of being human, right? Again, lack of communication, unrealistic expectations from ourselves, unrealistic expectations from others. So we are not, we are expecting too much out of our partners, or we're expecting too much out of our coordinator, etc. And then when things don't happen and don't go our way, we feel upset, right? Or we are feeling upset, but we're not being able to communicate that. Then also, if we don't have a trust circle, if we have lack of support, and there's limited access to knowledge or resources. So all our resources in our classroom include our students, include other teachers, other colleagues, etc. So if you're not being able to use all our resources, again, we could be stressed or overstressed out, right? So any other situations under which some of you feel stressed? Like anything else that causes you stress, or anything like, for some of us, if people are untruthful, it may cause. So a difference in value system, a difference in belief system can cause a lot of stress for people. For example, for me, I hate it when people are rude to anyone, right? So I can't tolerate rudeness, and something in me just spikes. So whether it's my son being rude to me or my husband, or whether it is, I see someone on the street, or I see an older person being rude to a younger person, or a younger person being rude to an older person, it doesn't matter, right? For me, that's my belief system, that you can't be rude, you can't be non-empathetic towards people. So similarly, each of you would have your belief system, and you would see that it is impacting you or not impacting you, right? So that is in terms of causes of stress. Now I'm going to again give you a 30-second pause here. Anyone who has any questions for me in that section, anything to do with the curve, anything to do with the steps, the causes, burnout, are we good? Are we good? Are we sure we're good? Or does anyone have any questions? All right, Sumati ma'am is saying yes. I'm going to take that as a yes from everyone else as well. Okay, all right. So let's move on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So now that you've understood stress and stress management, a very, very critically important part of stress management is self-care and compassion. Okay. Now, as the word says, self-care is about caring about yourself, and compassion also we are going to talk about it in a little while. But really, if I were to tell you that one of the biggest ways, the biggest strategies of managing your stress is to ensure that you do self-care, then you need to understand, why am I saying this, right? Why is it that I'm saying that self-care is so important for us? Why is it that I'm saying, giving it so much importance and putting it right on top there, right? So when we're looking at self-care, it ensures that you are going to enjoy life more. You will be able to cope with stressful situations a lot better. And that is research telling you. When you are looking after yourself better, you are in a better frame of mind. Whether you have a baby in the house who's 1 year old, 2 years old, or you have a teenager or an older child, you will realize that a parent's stress and an adult stress always translates to the children. So if you're a classroom teacher, it'll translate to your students. If you, as a parent, it'll translate to your children at home. And therefore, if you are less stressed, if you are taking care of yourself, you will be able to manage your relationships better, no matter what they are. Whether those relationships are with younger people, with older people, you'll be able to manage them better. You will be able to, again, all of these reasons are research-based reasons, and therefore productivity definitely goes up when you're looking after yourself. When you're physically and mentally in a better state, productivity will automatically go up for sure, right? But then what are the ways in which we can do that? Okay, there are these 7 typical ways, but all of us need not do all 7. All of us also need not do all 7 all the time. We may have our preferences. So some of us may, like, for example, when I asked to write in the beginning, some of you said you pray, others said that they look at social media, others said, that I'm doing household chores, so I'm practical. So you may be doing, whatever keeps you positive. So you may be doing a little bit of spirituality. You may also be practical. At the same time, there is a professional responsibility which you want to maintain. And if you're good at your professional work, that itself is self-care for you. So for a person like me, my work is my motivation, right? So if my work is working well, that takes care of a lot of my self-care needs. So that could be true to some of you as well. So it could be a combination of any of these, and it could also be all of these all the time. It could be some of these some of the time, and at other times you may want to do something different. So just because there is someone in the room who's doing yoga at 5 o'clock in the morning and is really fit, if yoga doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Right? If exercise doesn't work for you, you prefer walking, you prefer swimming, you can't go to the gym, that's okay. You find out what's working for you. But the important part is find out what's working for you and make it happen. Okay? But then we don't do it all the time. So there's something that stops us. So what stops us from doing self-care? Anyone who has any answers? What stops us from taking the step of supporting ourselves, of looking after ourselves? Anyone with any answers for me? if I say that if you do self-care on a regular basis, a lot of your stress will go away, right? So what stops us from doing that? There are reasons. There are research-based
Belief,
reasons.
belief system, ma'am. First of all,
Belief
belief.
system. Yes, absolutely. Priorities. Absolutely, Vandana ma'am. Workload. Yes. Lack of motivation. Pure laziness. No time and laziness. Laziness. I like the fact that a lot of us are saying laziness, right? And here is what research is telling us. Okay. Time management. Yes. So agreed. And all of that is here, right? So research is telling you that a lot of us are putting everyone else in front and we come in last. So we have the carer mindset, which means that we believe that everyone else is more important in the world. And hamara to kya hai? Hum to roti sabzi, namak roti se bhi zinda reh lenge. That concept, right? So I have the carer mindset. I have the responsibility of a lot of people, which I agree. As individuals, a lot of us will have a different set of responsibilities, but find a little bit of time for yourself, right? Yeah, absolutely, Sumati ma'am. The Tyag concept, right? The second reason which research tells you is, so there are certain set of people who are saying, "Main bakiyon ke liye tyag kar sakta hu," right? I can be that person who gives up things for other people. Then there is a second set of people who are in the superhero mindset. Now, what is the superhero mindset? They're saying, okay, I am that person who doesn't need self-care. My body has been built. I've been eating the right kind of food. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, etc. Having said that, self-care also does not mean that you're doing exercise. Self-care could just mean that you're sitting next to the window, looking outside for 5 minutes, just looking at people walking around you. Self-care could mean that you're coloring. Self-care could mean you're doing nothing. For some of you, it might be just sitting on a chair and just blanking out. Okay. But to understand that you need that is also important, right? So it can't be the superhero mindset. Time competing priorities, a lot of you have said. So yes, absolutely. But I'm going to request all of you to do this one exercise, and then you'll never say time nahi hai in this world. On a sheet of paper, do this after the session, on a sheet of paper, because I don't want answers, right? It's only for self-realization. On a sheet of paper, draw 24 boxes. Each of those boxes represent an hour in your day, right? So supposing you sleep for 6 hours in the day, you shade out 6 boxes in a single color and write sleeping. Then next 4 boxes maybe is to do with your eating your food, doing this, doing that, whatever. You shade that out. Next 4 maybe is for going to school, preparing for your lesson, blah, blah, blah. You share it, shade it out. Do that, right? And there are 2 options in that. One is most of you will realize that you will not find it possible to fill up those 24 squares, which means half an hour, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, quarter of an hour will be left in those 24 hours. And for those of you who, fill it up, somewhere you are being inefficient. Go figure out what can be reduced so that you can find time out. So do that exercise, and I leave it up to you to decide what steps you take next. Okay. Perceived value is, I don't consider self-care important. I don't think people are making this hullabaloo. It's just a fad. It is not important. And I don't think I want to do it. Right. Not in my routine is related to time management. So I can't just fit it in. I have too many responsibilities. But like I said, do that 24 square exercise. And if you find half a minute also, half a day, 15 minutes also, ensure that that is where you write self-care down and start with that. Slowly that half a minute, half a day, half a hour can increase and to the optimum level that you need, right? And then sometimes you are like, I don't have any role models. See, Vasundhara has been doing yoga for the last 30 years. What has it done to her? She's not even lost half a gram. Why should I do yoga? So-and-so reads a book every month, but vocabulary is just ordinary. So I don't consider anyone my role model, right? In terms of this, and I don't see any advantage or value in it. Now, this is what research is telling you. All I am telling you is, if you're somewhere in these 6 things, it's time to change. It's time to make that one change at least. If you are in the carer mindset or the superhero mindset or the time competing mindset, whatever is it, it could be multiple things. It could be one of those things. It could be something else. But do that 24 cycle mindset. And this is what you then need to do, right? You would have heard of SMART, right? You would have heard of SMART in the goal setting context. You would have heard of SMART in a lot of contexts. I'm telling you to do this in the stress management context. So when you're looking at self-care, or you're looking at how am I going to manage manage to find time or do a specific thing for looking after myself, it has to be specific. It cannot be global. It can't be Vasundhara has to do self-care for herself. That cannot be the objective. You have to say something specific to yourself and decide that that is what you're going to do. Again, it has to be measurable. If I'm doing yoga for weight loss, if I'm doing yoga for just a healthy lifestyle, if I'm doing coloring for just easing my mind out, etc., I need to figure out, okay, I'm going to do I should be able to finish one coloring page in 10 days, 5 days. What am I going to do? That's time bound as well as measurable, because it's one page in a time bound manner. Also, you have to keep it achievable and realistic. Otherwise, you will not be motivated enough to continue with it. So don't suddenly say, I'm going to run 10 kilometers when you've not run in your life ever, right? Just because you today want to suddenly become healthy, or you suddenly want to look after yourself or whatever, not happening. You suddenly can't say, I'll read 100 books in 100 days. Okay, because I think that book reading is a good habit and book reading is going to make me happier. It cannot, it's not going to work. So it has to be achievable, it has to be realistic, and then slowly you scale it up depending on how it's working for you. And therefore, I gave you this pat on the back right in the beginning. I'm asking you to give another pat on the back, but this time to remember that pause, think what you're thinking. Always remember that as educators, we are doing a difficult job, but we are also doing a job which is very heartwarming, which gives us a lot to have gratitude about, right? And therefore, tune into that positivity, right? There are going to be tough days. There are going to be difficult days. There are going to be hopeless days, okay? But how do we make it count? How do we ensure that we're going to make it happen, or it's going to make a difference to us, right? With that, I'm going to pause a little bit in case any of you have any questions. And I also have a video to play for you. So I'll just share sound and share that video. Anyone for any questions before I start playing the video? Okay, the video is only about observation. Okay, it has some subtle music in the background, but doesn't really talk too much. I just want you to have a look at the video. And then if you have any thoughts after you see the video, come back and share that. Also, we can take any questions if you have, right? So hopefully sound will be there, but it doesn't really need sound. So I'm just going to play it either way. So it's a short video, just enjoy it. All right. Anyone for any thoughts? Anyone who has anything to share? So essentially, self-care and stress management also works like that, right? Where you are going to look at yourself first, and as soon as you put it in, you'll find the time for it. It'll work. So this everything that I've spoken about applies to your students as well, right? But then, how do we ensure that students are able to manage their stress? Here are a few things that we can do as educators to help them manage their stress, right? One is, of course, they need to understand that stress or that bare minimum level of stress is important, is the motivating factor, right? But apart from that, how is it that they're going to ensure that they will be able to jump back from a situation or be able to handle any given situation as well? So what we need to encourage them to do is to have a positive frame of mind and have positive self-talk. Also, be very metacognitive and reflective in nature. Are you familiar with the word metacognition? Are we familiar with the word metacognition? So most of you would have heard of metacognition in the context of thinking about your own thinking, right? But in this case, you're extrapolating that and saying, what is working for me? So if I'm studying, for example, is studying with music working for me? Is walking around working for me? Is making graphic organizers working for me? So as what causes children maximum amount of stress? Their inability to cope with academics or their inability to perform with academics, etc. Right? That's their basic role. So if they're able to apply metacognitive strategies where they're able to figure out how they're learning best, their stress levels will be controlled automatically, right? So there's a purpose, there's a way in which they'll be able to handle their studies or handle their learning, etc. That is how they will be able to work through it. Having conversations, having training around resilience. And resilience is not just about bouncing back. Resilience is also, I figured out that in this situation, this is how I solved the situation. This is my critical thinking and problem solving working. But next time I encounter this situation, will I handle it differently? Will I handle it in a better way? So that is what children have to be trained towards. Every time they encounter a difficult situation, do they just sit back and I just sit in a position and say, someone else has to do this for me? Or are they constantly problem solving, critically thinking and saying, okay, how can I solve this, right? And of course, having a gratitude wall in school or doing regular gratitude exercises, giving them a reason for being grateful and thankful. In the younger classes, sometimes playing music, even older classes for that matter, anything that soothes the senses, anything that makes them, sit and, kind of their calming of their senses happens, that's going to work. And the last one is absolutely my favorite, where we're talking about ZPD, which is the zone of proximal development. So if we are making children learn, and we are giving them sufficient challenge in class, we're giving them enough opportunities to learn. Depending on where I am, I could be a learner who's struggling, that is where my stress is. I could be a learner who's very good, and my stress is that I'm finding the class very boring, right? So if the classroom planning is done in a manner that we're taking care of the zone of proximal development of children, and we're taking care of where they're going to learn best, that is where we're going to be able to manage their stress levels best as well. Of course, everything that I did from the beginning, which means them understanding that stress is fine, them understanding how they're going to handle the stress, them encountering various problem solving situations and then getting better and better at it, is definitely going to help as well. With that, I'm going to pause for any questions, and also say thank you before, for being there throughout, for listening in, for your participation as well. Anyone who has any questions before we say bye-bye to each other today? And I'll also request everyone in the chat, if you don't have any questions, then if you can just in the chat or unmute and share any 3 things that you're going to take away from the session, and any one thing which you found interesting or you're promising to do for yourself, right? So any 3 things that you found interesting, which you're going to remember, and any one self-care or any self motivation that you are definitely promising yourself with. Any questions for me? Thank you everyone who's liked the session, but I'll be happy to answer questions if any of you have any questions. I'll also be happy to take any feedback. It's always good to take feedback, improve a session. Any questions or any other feedback, you can unmute and share as well if you want to. Any of you want to unmute and share, or thank you, Savita ma'am. All power to you. Take care of yourself as well. Thank you, everyone. Those of you who want to log out, you may, in case anyone wants to stay back for answering any question, for me to answer any questions. I'm there for a while. So I'll be happy to answer any questions as well. Thank you, Madhvi ma'am, Savita ma'am. All the best, Pratima ma'am. Yes, Yogita ma'am, you have a question? Yogita ma'am, you have a question? Lovely, Geeta ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a wonderful session, and
Thank you,
it like uh, I came to know the importance of self giving time to self. So,
Thank you so much.
which is very important.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that is also important because generally we do it for everybody at home,
Correct.
but we don't give time for ourselves. So,
Correct.
thank you
And
so much.
at some point or the other, Pratham ma'am, it comes back to us, right? Because we're only human.
Yeah, yeah.
How much like
Yes,
a rubber band will be stretched, right? So somewhere where that rubber
Yeah.
band collapses is where it hurts the entire family.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
better not to allow it to reach there.
Yes.
So thank you so
Thank-
much. Thank you
yeah.
so much for sharing. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. In case anyone else also wants to share, I'm there for some time. You can go ahead and share, please. Thank you, Gina ma'am. Thank you so much.